Jesus. So welcome to the Church of Jesus Christ. Our message today is at the very least interesting to me. I think it was probably 3 weeks ago that a couple words came to me, and I felt God was giving me at least a theme, and know this, nothing else, just a theme. And I prayed and prayed and prayed and didn't feel that Sunday that it was right for then. I didn't feel like it was right maybe even the next week, and it wasn't right last week. But this week I felt like to revisit it. It normally, especially at this stage of life, if I'm given something on 1 week, it is gone. If it's not used, it is gone, flittered away. I who can't find what I was looking for when I entered a room, I sure can't hold on to a theme for such a long time period, but it stayed with me. And so I came into this day with this theme in my mind. And I when Candace got up this morning, I said, I got nothing. Is that how I said it to you? I got nothing. And we have been in a swirl this whole weekend. And so my mind just wasn't locked on to anything. So let me just first share the theme with you. And it can be heard as a question, maybe as an outcry, as a statement, I'm sure, but it can also be an outcry of fear. It can be an outcry of anger. It can even be an outcry of joy. Okay, so I really didn't know where the Lord was taking me, even when he gave me these two words. And so I came into the meeting, came into this morning wondering what the Lord was saying and why it was going to be used today. And I probably should have thought about this weekend and understood completely why. It's certainly a question that can come up every single day, maybe for some every single moment. Okay, so I'm going to share it with you and then you decide whether you relate to this. And the theme today is, what now? And what's amazing about the theme is you can reverse the words and ask it this way: now what? What now? Now what? It can be an outcry of fear. What now? It can be an outcry of anger, as I said earlier. What now? It can be an outcry of joy. What now do we have to experience? Friday night, we had our first game, football game. It was preseason, so it didn't count. But tell that to any one of the players, any one of the coaches, that this doesn't count. The intensity was amped up. And so it was a game. And in the middle of the intensity this Friday, I got word that our refrigerator freezer had shut down. I am the son of one of an ethnicity. I am the husband of one of ethnicity. And with this ethnicity, the refrigerator freezer is defined as the most critical appliance in the kitchen. My Italian wife was very, very concerned, to say the least, about what to do next. She was rescued. Courtney and Keel and the kids came over and rescued and saved the majority of those things in the freezer, but certainly not the freezer, in the fridge. But I thank them all. The Curran family, I thank them all for the rescue. I think they also rescued Candace's spirit. And so it was, I can't say I was at ease the whole Friday night and the rest of the game, but I knew that she was in good hands, and that helped. I told two coaches, my two boys, if you will, my young coaches who I've been with for 10 years. I told both coaches about the refrigerator freezer. And we talked a little bit Friday night. One of them, his name is DeMarco. DeMarco came in to the house and he and I worked on the refrigerator freezer for about an hour that night. And we thought we had done everything we needed to do, turn the fridge back on, and it would be healed by morning time. It was not. And so I awakened at 6 o'clock. One of the other coaches called me at midnight and said, listen, our DeMarco talked about a refrigerator freezer he saw on sale. The other coach went over to Lowe's first thing in the morning to scope it out. And he said, I'll buy it. And then you can come in there and nab it. And so anyway, Candace and I went to Lowe's. It was not intentional, but I don't know that she believes me. But I obviously made enough noise in the bedroom at 6:45 a.m. that she awakened from her sleep. And by 7:15, we were on our way to Lowe's. If I did do that on purpose, it was subconscious. Trust me when I say that. He says, making one last case to his wife in the congregation. But we did head to Lowe's and we began this circular motion of trying to find something to put in our kitchen. We shopped for the main refrigerator. By the time, I'm going to short form this, by the time it was all over, we decided let's just get a freezer for the carport or the garage, and then we'll just save our food and we'll come back. We have a trip planned this week. So we'll come back from the trip and at least have our food safe. That was our plan. And then we'll get the other one fixed or do whatever. But all day Saturday was just a swirl. Same son-in-law, Keel, came and picked me up and took me over to Indiana, where we did buy another refrigerator. Then I had to install that and rearrange the garage to make room. I'm only saying this to tell you, throughout the day, I kept asking, though not specifically, mentally, emotionally, I kept asking, what next? What now? And this theme lived throughout, just completely. It took form, it took root, and the theme came alive the whole weekend. I had no conscious thought of that at all on Saturday and Friday night as I was working through. I had no recall to the theme. I only presented to you to say, I understand. I understand anyone who would be left to ask that question in their life. Sweet Leah this morning, I'm sure, is asking that question. What now? And maybe each of you. I had a really wonderful back and forth with Sister Jennifer this week concerning something unrelated, to which I thought maybe she asked a few times over the last month or so, what now? Now what? Now what? And so I know that each of us are familiar with this phrase, whether we ever utter that question in that manner or not. We all, I think, are familiar with it and understand the sentiment and understand the impact of that thought. I didn't teach anyone. Candace and I have talked about a question that's asked. What else can happen? Can it get any worse? And so we have agreed we will never ask those questions, because the answer is yes, and we don't want to understand or identify what that is specifically. So maybe we mask it with what now? I had come to the understanding that this is what God wanted the message to be today. I came to the understanding that I felt this was God's direction. And one of the coaches, one of my other babies, I'm the old guy on the team, and so these young coaches in their 30s are my boys. And one of them shot me a text this morning and said, "Please call me ASAP." And so I did, and found out that a terrible accident took place last night. Some bad decisions were made, and we lost one of our players. I have young people in the room, and so that's all I can describe. I'm not going to go further into any other details. Just that one of our babies is no longer. And so the dangerous question, what now, will be answered. Because it is what defines life. There is always a what now question and an answer to that question. It is that question, whether the iteration is what now or now what, that fills and fulfills life. Sometimes pleasantly. We had some young people in our little mission who were just baptized at this most recent camp out. And the question that is appropriate in their lives is, what now? Now what? What's going to happen now? So many stages of our lives, if not every single one, can be defined by that question. I've often said the most important decisions I've ever made in my life were made without real understanding. I got married. I had no idea. I asked for my baptism. I had no idea. We moved to Florida. Fort Lauderdale from West Palm Beach. I had no idea. We moved to Kentucky. I had no idea. What now? It's what makes life exciting, and it can be what makes life terrifying. Unless. I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to guide you to Matthew 25. And read on your own, if you'll accept a little homework, the story, the parable of the 10 virgins. It's long, it's beautiful, it's appropriate, but I'm not going to read it this morning. I'd like you to do that on your own. I'm going to read a few short verses, maybe that'll be a blessing to you and help you understand what you can do to enhance and or counter what now. Proverbs 6, stars and insect. Yes, stars and insect. An ant. The word of God highlights as our example an ant. It says this, go to the ant. Please no one take offense, thou sluggard. What he's saying is, do you find yourself unmotivated right now? If so, go to the ant, consider her ways, and be wise. Let her be your example, which having no guide, nor overseer, nor ruler, provides her meat in the summer and gathers her food in the harvest. She counters, she prepares for the question, what now? Should something take place unexpectedly, she has gathered, collected, and provided all that her family needs. When things were good, when things were sunny, when things were fine, she did all of her work so that when maybe the news changed, her family was cared for. Proverbs 6, verses 6, 7, and 8. Go to that and utilize that for some counsel. Jesus Christ says in Matthew 24:44, therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man cometh. For this young man, the Son of Man came last night. For in an hour as you think not, the Son of Man cometh. The word and the counsel, before I heard this news, the Lord was prepping me to prep you, that you would prepare for whatever might come. Alma 39 says this was the ministry unto which you were called, to declare these glad tidings unto this people, to prepare their minds. The news is not going to change. The news, whatever it is, unprovoked, unsuspected, might come. Might answer the question, what now? Sometimes joyfully and sometimes much less. He says, prepare their minds. Or rather, that salvation might come unto them, that they may prepare the minds of their children to hear the word at the time of his coming. Now, I will ease your mind, at least somewhat, on this subject. Behold, you marvel why these things should be known so long beforehand. He's speaking to a time period. I'm speaking to a much shorter time period. His time period is hundreds of years in advance of the Son of God coming to the earth. My comments are in advance of you hearing the answer, what now? Prepare your minds so that you're ready. Gather your meat so that you're ready. Behold, I say unto you, is not a soul at this time as precious to God as a soul will be at the time of his coming? And I say to you, every one of you is precious to him. I don't speak to a time, I speak to you individually. There is no one soul more precious to God than another. Prepare yourself that you don't lose the most precious, which is the salvation of God. And truly, the answer to what now may someday tempt the preciousness of what's before us. Sometimes the discouragement is so great, and sometimes the joy is so great we lose our way. This week, Candace and I won't spend a long time on this. This week, Candace and I, as we walked our morning walk, she's told me that the 1.6, maybe, if it's right, $1 billion had been won. And she asked the question, what would you do with that money if you won? I really didn't bite. I really didn't take the temptation. I didn't bite on it because it's not coming. I think the old phrase is you got to play to win. So I didn't even know when it went on. I had no idea. But I wonder if that news is received as joyful to some. And I wonder if it can draw them away from what is most precious. So it's not just disappointment that can draw us away. It's any number of things. What now? I have so many verses to read to you. I'm not going to read them all. We all know the one in 2 Timothy 2:15 through 17. I'm going to leave that with you. But it starts, study, and it says to shew, S-H-E-W, we say show, to show thyself approved. You read it. But I will tell you this. the next verses are as powerful. I guess I'm going to read it to you so you understand. I'm going to read the verse and I'm going to read you those verses. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. We all know that. Read on. I encourage you, read on to 16 and 17. It says this, but shun profane and vain babblings. What now? Be careful what you ask for. Be careful about complaining. Be careful about not speaking with knowledge that God is, that God will, that God does. But shun profane and vain babblings, for they will increase unto more ungodliness. Their word will eat as doth a canker. It'll infect and it'll damage your soul, your heart, your mind, your spirit, everything that's good about you. Read in advance of the answer, what now? As the answer came this morning to what now in our lives, I probably ran the gamut of grieving in 30 seconds, immediately denying, no, this can't be. Last week, the Friday before, we had a scrimmage. We found that there was some lackings, and some of those lackings were in leadership. And so we challenged our players to go away from, after the group gathered, we asked a few to stay after and talk to those young people on the field. And we asked them to get their positions together, their groups. That means the running backs all together, the quarterbacks all together, the receivers all together, the linemen all together, away from everybody else, and pick their leaders. This young man that we lost last night was picked by his team, by the other players in his position as their leader. This morning, devastation hit that group of young people. What now is not always an easy answer. Luke 21, 6 through 15. I'm going to walk you through the beginning, though the beginning is the meat of the verse. I'm going to walk you through some of this, but it speaks of a time when destruction may come. As for these things which you behold, the days will come in which there will not be left one stone upon another. And it goes on to talk about the people being terrified about everything that can happen in this. And that's normally where we focus. I certainly do on these verses, but that's not where I am going to focus today. After 6 verses of this, and I am asking you to go to Luke 21 and read 6 through 11 or 12 on your own. Verse 13, after hearing about all of this, he says this, and it shall turn to you for a testimony. No matter what comes your way, no matter how good or how bad, even devastation. Devastation doesn't always come by way of buildings crumbling. It comes many different ways. And it shall turn to you for a testimony. Settle it therefore in your hearts. Please hear this. Please hear this counsel. Shall turn to you for a testimony. Settle it therefore in your hearts, not to meditate before what you shall answer. For I will give you a mouth and wisdom, which all your adversaries shall not be able to gainsay nor resist. Study to show thyself approved. I'll give you the words. I'll fill your heart when it feels empty. I'll comfort your pain when that's all that you have. I'll give you wisdom when you have blessings that are so great, they tempt you. Even pull you possibly away. Do the work today. Gather the meat today, like that ant. so that when whatever it is that answers the question, what now, comes, you're readied, whether good or great or bad or horrible. Our God understands. Why he stirred my heart 3 weeks ago only to silence me with this theme, I don't know. Why I questioned 2 weeks ago only to be silenced, I don't know, other than maybe at this stage of life I needed to keep this theme going in my head in order to remember 3 weeks later. Last week, tempted. Not until this week did I feel God's direction to bring it to you on a weekend that I'm not sure. And this is no temptation, no challenge, not even a what now. I'm not sure a weekend could have gone as difficultly as this one did. My life has been spent with beautiful and glorious answers to what now. And so who am I to complain? Certainly not. The answers to what now in my life have sustained me. And so I refuse to allow them. I've refused to allow them to destroy me. I've tried to make a case for you that, like that ant, that you work while the sun is shining, while good times are here, so that you're prepared when the storm comes. I've often said the saints are not defined in the good times. The saints of God are defined in the difficult times. Those who believe and love the Lord, those who serve him no matter what is dealt. And so on this day, when I want to silence the question, what now? I don't. But I don't fear the answer. I want you to hear that. I don't fear the answer. Because in my life, and I'm sure in yours, and I want you to recall this in your life, the answer to what now has never been too great. Yet when some of those answers have come, assumptions were made, maybe even statements overtly made that were certainly incorrect, that were, this is too great, this is too much. And yet we go forward loving the Lord. And so today I ask you to pray for the Stewart family. I ask you to pray for the other young people who were involved. I don't have an accurate number of who, don't have all the names of who, and I'm not willing to share details about. But I ask you to pray for these families, pray for our team. I called Lonnie before the service today, just to check on him. And he didn't say a whole lot. He just said, I'll see you in church. And I knew that he had asked the question, I'm certain, in his mind, what now? And it had hard answers and good answers. And so he showed no willingness to complain, no willingness to be discouraged by this, though we are all devastated. All he said was, We're pulling our team together at 4 o'clock this afternoon. We serve a God who oversees. We serve a God who guides and directs even an ant. So why wouldn't he direct and guide us? Why wouldn't he oversee us? And so it is today that we're left with hearts broken, but not destroyed. Don't be afraid to ask the question, what now? Because whether you ask it or not, the answer's coming. Today, I ask you to celebrate Jesus Christ, to celebrate the Lord, to celebrate this life. If everything, if all, if every waking moment was spent in joy, I truly believe given our current status, we wouldn't be able to handle that. And so the rain falls and the sun shines on the just and the unjust, because it just is. I love you all, and I pray God's blessings in each one of your lives. May the Lord bless each one of you.